The night the storm rolled over the old highway was the night lives changed forever. You could taste the dust in the air, feel the tension crawling under your skin, and sense that someone, somewhere, was about to face the consequences they had been avoiding for far too long. The battered signboard of Ridgewood Town flickered weakly, as if even it had given up hope after decades of witnessing injustice and quiet suffering. But fate, in its own fierce way, had decided it was finally time for a reckoning. And that reckoning roared in on the engines of a biker gang known across counties not for violence, not for crime, but for their strange, stubborn belief that the world could still be set right when good people decided to stop being silent. Before we ride deeper into this story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and justice delivered with compassion, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to KindHeartsHub. Your support keeps these powerful stories alive. Ridgewood wasn't a cruel town. It had simply been swallowed by neglect, choked by corruption, and hardened by years of manipulation by two aging men who had once promised to protect it, Harold and Benson. One controlled the money, the other controlled the influence. Between them, they had quietly stolen away opportunities, hopes, and dreams from families who trusted them. People suffered, people cried, people worked themselves to the bone while these two old men grew richer, fatter, more arrogant. And worst of all, they hid it under the mask of generosity, acting like benevolent elders while tearing lives apart behind closed doors. But the story doesn't begin with the old men. It begins with a boy named Liam, a quiet young mechanic with grease under his nails, a wounded past in his eyes, and a heart too gentle for the world he lived in. His mother had died years ago from an illness no one helped her fight. His father, a decent man with a cracked voice and tired hands, had lost his land to Harold and Benson in one of their most vicious schemes. Liam had grown up learning that strength wasn't muscles, it wasn't vengeance, and it wasn't anger. It was surviving without losing your kindness. But even kindness can break when pushed too far. Liam worked in a rundown workshop, fixing the motorcycles of travelers, wanderers, and riders who passed through Ridgewood. He was good at it, brilliant even. Some said he had a gift, others said he had magic in his fingers. His dream was small yet enormous, to save enough to rebuild his family home and create a space where travelers could find shelter, food, and warmth, something his mother always wished for. But Harold and Benson were like shadows that stretched into every corner of Ridgewood, and they made sure Liam never stood up too strongly, never earned too much, never allowed himself to hope too loudly. Then came the day everything fell apart. Liam discovered that Harold and Benson had pushed through a false legal claim on the land where his workshop stood. It was a lie, a twisted document crafted in the dark, meant to snatch away the last piece of his father's legacy and throw Liam into the streets. He felt something inside him tremble, like the soft crack of a heart that had been breaking slowly for years and had finally reached its limit. He wasn't the kind of person who begged, but he wasn't built to fight either. He simply felt lost, drowning in a world where good people suffered without reason. News traveled faster than the wind in certain circles, and one circle was made of steel, leather, dust, and hearts that carried their own heavy scars. The Orion Riders, an infamous biker group with a reputation wrapped in rumors. People said they rescued the helpless, protected the weak, and fought corruption in their own fierce, unpredictable ways. They didn't trust laws because laws had failed them once. They trusted humanity, and the belief that even broken roads could lead to redemption. When the riders arrived in Ridgewood, the air shifted. Their engines were thunder rolling across forgotten streets, their presence a storm breaking over the town. People peeked from windows, children stared with curiosity. Harold and Benson's men grew restless, suddenly sensing danger they couldn't control. But Liam didn't fear them. One look into the calm, determined eyes of their leader, Jackson, and Liam understood. These weren't men who destroyed for pride. These were men who rebuilt through fire. Jackson listened to Liam's story without interruption. The riders gathered around, their silent solidarity forming a shield around a boy who had carried too much pain alone. And something unexpected happened. Jackson placed a firm, reassuring hand on Liam's shoulder, and in that simple gesture, Liam felt a strength he had never known before. A strength that whispered, "You are not alone anymore." The Orion Riders didn't storm into Harold and Benson's world with violence or chaos. They moved with purpose, studying every lie, tracing every fraudulent paper, exposing every hidden deal. Their methods weren't gentle, but they were just. They cornered the lawyers who forged documents, confronted officials who took bribes, and peeled back layers of corruption like scraping away rust from a forgotten engine. They made the truth impossible to bury. The old men panicked. They weren't used to being held accountable. Benson tried to buy the riders off. Harold tried threats. Neither worked. These weren't men who could be bought, and they weren't men who feared power. They only feared failing the innocent. When the riders brought all the evidence to light, the town erupted. Decades of fear melted into outrage. Harold and Benson's illusions crumbled like rotten wood. The people they once manipulated now stood united, but it wasn't rage that fueled the riders, it was justice. They wanted redemption for Ridgewood, not destruction. The final confrontation wasn't fists or weapons. It was truth delivered with the force of 1,000 storms. Jackson made Harold and Benson face the families they had ruined. The trembling old men, once rulers of Ridgewood, now stood small and exposed. Their empire of lies collapsed, but the real lesson was yet to come. Instead of handing them over to authorities who might be swayed or corrupted again, the riders demanded something far more painful: restitution. Harold and Benson were ordered to return every stolen property, repay every victim, publicly restore every piece of dignity they had crushed. And they did, because for the first time in their lives, they were afraid, not of the riders' strength, but of their integrity. Weeks passed. Ridgewood healed. Liam's workshop was restored, expanded, and given back to him legally and publicly. For the first time, he felt free to dream again. His father's memory lived on in every tool he picked up, every engine he revived, every traveler he welcomed with warm food and a kind smile. The riders didn't stay. They moved on, their mission complete, but they left behind something priceless: hope reborn. Liam didn't become powerful, wealthy, or influential, but he became something far rarer, a symbol of resilience. Ridgewood transformed, not because corruption vanished, but because courage finally took root. And in the heart of the town, where once stood ruins of despair, there now stood a workshop glowing with light late into the night. Light built on kindness, justice, and the belief that good hearts, when united, can change the world. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to KindHeartsHub. Your support helps spread kindness, hope, and powerful stories like this to people who need them most. Special request: comment "Kindness always wins" if you believe every innocent soul deserves protection and justice.